My name is Cynthia Defazio, and I'm joined today by Prashant Sabapathi and Ozer Culhagil of Elite Income Advisors. Prashant, how are you today?
I'm doing excellent. How are you?
Fantastic. Always a pleasure to see you.
Absolutely.
Ozer, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking.
I always love having you both in the studio. Obviously, you're filled with such amazing knowledge, helping people navigate this very tricky time of life known as retirement. Today's show is very special because we're going to talk about the 5 deadly risks of retiring today, the big 5.
Yeah.
So I think all of our viewers right now are wondering what those big 5 risks are. And I should start out by asking, do you get asked a lot of questions when people come in that are thinking about planning their retirement? And if so, what is the #1 question they ask you, Prashant?
Is my money going to run out?
Right.
Right? People are ultra concerned these days about running out of money, especially the prospect of living into our 80s and 90s. I mean, my grandmother's, 97 now?
Wow.
She's turning 97 this year. So, you know, that's a really cool thing to go through, but it's also overwhelming, and it can be kind of scary sometimes too. If you don't have a plan in place for how you're going to make your money last, that is an intoxicating, kind of overwhelming feeling to have. So by far, that's got to be the #1 concern that folks have is my money going to last? And then #2, I would say, is when can I actually retire? With everything going on in the world today with the Federal Reserve and the stock market and inflation, cost of living issues, people are just wondering, when can I actually really retire? And so those are the types of questions that we try to help folks figure out, because if you don't have the answers to those questions, I mean, how can you feel confident about retiring?
Absolutely. Ozer, are you finding that people are wanting to retire a little earlier today, or are they working longer is what I'm trying to say? Are they working longer and then delaying their retirement?
I think that most of the people don't know exactly when they can retire. And I believe they are working way more than they're supposed to.
Okay.
They can retire early, which in these days, retiring early is changing based on the Social Security and so forth. But what I'm seeing is people are actually want to retire early because they want to enjoy the life that they work so hard for.
Sure. That makes sense. Well, going back to those 5 deadly risks and scares, let's talk about the first one, because this obviously is something that people think about all the time and perhaps have the wrong idea about this in retirement. Prashant, taxes, #1. Let's dive into that.
It's got to be #1 because, look, we're always going to have our tax liabilities that we have to account for. And I think, to your point, I think that is something that people just kind of take for granted, that they don't really have control over how much tax they end up paying, right? It's always like, I know I'm going to have to pay my tax, so let's just set that aside, factor that in, and move forward with our plans. But the simple fact is, you have a lot more control than you probably know about over the tax that you end up paying. And so what I'm talking about is, if you're the type of person who has been diligently saving money to your 401k, your thrift savings plan, 403b, that's money that when you retire and you go to withdraw it, you have to pay all the taxes on it then. You got to pay the federal, state tax associated with that when you make those withdrawals. But the issue is that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, we don't know what tax rates are actually going to look like,
That's
right?
true.
And everyone that I talk to thinks that taxes are going up, right? Every time I do a workshop, I always ask the crowd, does anyone in this room think taxes are going down in the next 10 or 20 years? And nobody ever raises their hand. Okay, so if taxes are going to go up in the future, does it potentially make sense to pay some of that tax liability today while taxes are, we think, lower, and that way we never have to pay them again in the future, right? And so that's an interesting thing. I think taxes are always going to eat at your retirement income, whether it's today or in the future, but we have to have a really concrete, structured plan for how we're going to deal with that. And Oz, I know one way we deal with that is by considering things like Roth conversion. So can you explain what a Roth conversion actually is and why it could be beneficial for somebody in the future?
The Roth conversion is, most of the time we do have the 401ks, IRAs, which we put the taxes before we pay. Sorry.
Yeah,
I'm confused over there a little.
You put the money in.
We
before
put the money
taxes,
in
right.
before the taxes, and it's growing. It's all tax deferred, And when the times comes up, we're going to take the withdrawals. And like Prashant says, we don't know what the tax bracket is going to be at the time.
Right.
So either we're going to pay 20%, 30%, or 40%. But what we can do is, and again, you need to talk to your CPA first before doing any of these conversions, but it's something called a Roth conversion. We can take some of our IRA money, we pay the taxes today, which we believe it's slightly less right now than the future, and that account is going to be still tax deferred. But when we do the taking money out from that accounts, it's going to be tax-free, which called the Roth conversion.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's valuable to be able to have tax-free money, right?
Sure.
If we can convert today potentially and then never pay taxes ever again, that's a home run.
Absolutely.
Now, that doesn't mean that everybody watching the show should go do a Roth conversion, right?
Definitely not.
But what it does mean is that this is something that we should be thinking about, okay? We absolutely should be thinking about this. If you're working with an advisor and you haven't talked about Roth conversion, you got to ask yourself if you're working with the right specialist, right? I mean, taxes are always going to be there. Let's go ahead and be proactive about how we're going to handle them moving forward.
And that's a very good point, Prashant, that you just brought up, because if Roth conversions are so important and they can help so many people, why is it something that not all advisors feel comfortable talking about?
So there's some moving parts to it, and there's a heck of a lot of planning that goes into it. So just to let you know, when you do a Roth conversion, you're effectively taking pre-tax money and turning it into tax-free money. The downside to doing that is that all of the amount that you convert actually becomes taxable in the year that you actually convert it. So if I have a $100,000 income and I convert $80,000 to a Roth, that $80,000 now counts as income in the year that I convert it, which means I have to pay all the taxes today. Wow. And that could have a residual domino effect on the rest of your financial plan. And so I think advisors shy away from it because there's a heck of a lot of work that goes from starting that conversion process to planning out how you're going to pay for the taxes, planning out what the projected income is going to look like. And so a lot of people just don't feel comfortable doing that. But if you work with the right professional, you get your tax advisor involved in the process, it could do you a heck of a lot of good for planning for the future. Because once it's in the Roth, it's effectively tax-free forever. And that's pretty sweet, especially even when you pass away, the Roth then passes tax-free to your beneficiaries as well.
That's fantastic.
It is a huge, huge deal, huge benefit. And so what we do every time we do one of these shows is we always open up our phone lines. That phone number is 833-308-5200. If you call into that phone number, you'll be able to schedule a 100% complimentary consultation with our team at Elite Income Advisors. When you come in, we're going to begin to put together for you the Retire Smart Roadmap. The Retire Smart Roadmap is going to help you answer some of these important questions that you have about managing your future tax liability. Is a Roth conversion the right thing for you? You have to explore all these things. How you're going to do that is you're going to pick up the phone, give us a call. We only have a limited number of spots for our television audience each and every week. So our operators are standing by. You call in, you set up an appointment with Ozzy, myself, our team at Elite Income Advisors, and we're going to get you on the right track to hopefully creating a plan that you can feel confident about as you head for retirement.
Prashant, thank you so much. And Ozzy, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, that number to call is on your screen. That number is 833-308-5200. We know that you have a lot of questions for Ozzy and Prashant about how to plan your perfect retirement. Well, they have the answers for you. We're going to take a very short commercial break, but don't go anywhere. We're talking about the 5 deadly risks that you can face in retirement. This next one, when I first talk about it when we come back from break, you might think it's a good thing, but wait, it may not be a good thing. So hold on. We'll be right back after this very short commercial break.
Good morning, Ben.
Good morning, Ben. Hey, birthday party for Carol and 5. Happy birthday to you.
Happy Monday.
Daryl's birthday, be there every square. Happy birthday to you. You can see from our quarterly report on slide number 62, we're trending in the right direction. All signs point to a very positive outlook for the next several years. If you peel back the onion...
Ben, do you have anything to add?
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
And welcome back to Retire Smart Maryland. My name is Cynthia Defazio, and I'm joined today by Prashant Sabapathi and Ozer Culhagil of Elite Income Advisors. Gentlemen, this is a great show today, talking about those 5 deadly risks that people can face in retirement. This next one is a little confusing because I would think that this would be a good thing, like we're taking good care of ourselves, we're eating healthy, we're exercising, and so ultimately the goal and the plan is to live longer. But Ozer, why is that an issue with longevity, which is number 2 in those 5 deadly risks for retirement?
The issue is, like, when we do our planning, we make the plans like based on, we look at it, our parents and the friends and everything, and we say, okay, like, my parents passed away at 80, so I'm going to be passing around that time. But that numbers are changed recently. Right now we are looking at the longevity somewhere between 86 to 96 years old in the people around the 60s. The good thing is, yes, they're going to live longer, but when they make their planning, their money is going to last until that age. That is the biggest risk that we are seeing it. Sometimes people make the plans like, I'm only going to live 20 years. Yeah. But it's great, but you're 65, 20 is going to put you to 85. Yeah. What if you live to be 100?
What if we're in a day and age, this is remarkable to me, we're in a day and age today where you could actually spend more time in retirement than you actually spent working.
That's amazing.
I mean, isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
Like, we do a lot of work with Anne Arundel County firefighters and some Baltimore City police, and those folks get like a pension, they get a deferred compensation plan, they get a drop program, which is like their version of our 401k, and those people get into the service when they're really young. They get in their 20s, they put in their time, and then they retire. It's not uncommon to see people retire from the service when they're 48, 50, 52 years old. And if those people end up living to be 90 or 95, they're going to spend more time in retirement than they actually did working. Now, they have pensions, which is great. But a lot of people these days don't have a pension. And so if you don't have a pension that's going to reliably provide you with an income every single month for the rest of your life, you're going to have to fund that on your own. Wow. And so how are you going to do that? If you're sitting at home thinking, hey, I have family history of 95 years old, but I don't have a pension and I don't know where my income is going to come from, you need to have a plan surrounding that. And so that's why longevity, we want it to be as long as possible, but we have to be really careful that we've planned appropriately to get there.
And I think obviously, as you just said, the key word is proper planning, which you're both so passionate about, helping people plan out for anything that may come, and no matter how long you may live, if you will. So this next one, wow, this is something to really talk about as well. This is number 3, because I want to make sure that we get through all 5 for our show today, but this is a big one. It can be a sad one as well. Death of a spouse and how that impacts the person that's left behind. Prashant, let's talk about that.
Yeah, of course, there is going to be some kind of an emotional stress that comes with that. And the last thing that anybody needs when you're going through that is also having the added financial stress, right? Yeah. And so we have to consider, if we're married and one spouse passes away, what happens financially? So what about Social Security? Let's start there, right? So with Social Security, if you have a married couple and one spouse passes away, and let's say they're both already collecting their benefits, the lower of those 2 benefits goes away forever, right? And then what if you do have a pension? If you have a pension and maybe you elected a survivor benefit on that pension, when you pass away, what happens to that pension? Does your spouse get to keep all of it, some of it, or none of it, right? And you have to be able to answer those questions, because inevitably, if you lose Social Security and you lose part of a pension, that could be a heck of a drop off of income.
Absolutely.
Very, very quickly. And unless you've repositioned your money or set up some kind of a plan to protect yourself against that, that could, really hinder your ability to make that money last the rest of your lifetime, which just goes back to what we just talked about, longevity.
Right.
Right. And so, as you can see, all these different things are so interconnected, I feel. It's not just that you have to address taxes or address the death of a spouse or address longevity. It's you got to make all these things work together. You got to address them all at the same time in a comprehensive type of way. And that's what we ultimately want to get to when we put these Retire Smart roadmaps together for folks.
Sure, and it makes perfect sense because then they can navigate no matter what happens. But Ozzy, I should ask you a question, obviously. We talked a little bit about taxes, of course, as being the number one thing that people are going through and facing during retirement. But when you lose a spouse, the way that you file your taxes, that changes as well, correct?
That is correct. And I also wanted to add something, regarding to the death of the spouse. Sometimes the people think that when one spouse passes away, all the expenses are going to cut in half.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That is the big thing that I'm seeing with the people, that, okay, I'm going to lose one of the Social Security, I'm going to lose half of the pension, but, it's just me, I don't have the other spouse. Yes, but, you still living in a house, the taxes is not changing in the house, the insurance is not changing in the house. Yes, when you go out to, dining, maybe you pay less, but
a lot of the fixed expenses stay
a lot
the
of the
same.
fixed expenses is not the same.
Yeah.
So when you do the proper planning, like Prashant says, you gotta have to think about that losing the other spouse, how it's gonna affect you in the future. What about the the longevity? Like, okay, you're gonna lose the Social Security, you're gonna lose some of your pension, but if you can do the proper planning, maybe it's not going to affect you that much.
Sure, that makes sense. And then again, Ozzy, or Prashant rather, when you come into, like, you losing a death of a spouse, if you will, most people tend to file their taxes actually jointly. What happens when you lose a spouse?
Yeah, so it's a great point that you're bringing up. So you'll file, typically, you can file jointly in the year that your spouse passes, but then every year forward, you're going from married filing jointly to potentially filing as an individual, which means the brackets are going to look different. All the rates are the same, but the cutoffs for each of the brackets are different. And so that is a really big point of consideration as you plan. Like, we had a client who, unfortunately, her husband passed away very early in the year. And so his pension did not come in from like March through December. And this was a couple of years ago. And so what we did is, because her income was lower for that year and she was still able to file jointly, we were actually able to do a Roth conversion for her so that she didn't pay as much tax on making the conversion.
Wow.
Right? And we did that in conjunction with her CPA. But these are the types of things that when you're working with a true specialist, with a true advisor who can coordinate the tax, the financial, the income, we're doing all that together. When you can do that, it makes a really big difference as to the overall financial plan and really the health of that financial plan. So if you're sitting at home thinking, you know what, my advisor's never talked about some of this stuff before, or this just gets your mind going to a place where it maybe hasn't been, just pick up the phone and give us a call. That phone number is 833-308-5200. Our operators are standing by. When you call in, you'll be able to schedule a time to come visit with us. Now, when you come in to visit with us, it's totally complimentary, okay? You come in, you have a conversation about your situation, we evaluate your objectives and your goals, and we're going to help you create a plan that's going to hopefully give you some clarity as to how you can structure your retirement. At any point in the process, if you feel like you're not a good fit for us or we're not a good fit for you, there's no obligation to become a client. So you can walk away with no reservations. All you have to do is pick up the phone right now. It's 833-308-5200. You can also pull out your cell phone and scan the QR code here at the bottom of your screen. That will take you to a page to help you schedule that initial visit with us. So just pick up the phone and give us a call.
Prashant, thank you so much. And Ozzy, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, that number to call is on your screen, 833-308-5200. We are going to take a very short commercial break, but don't go anywhere. We have 2 more risks that we have to get through. This next one is going to be market risk, so please stay tuned. We'll be right back after this very short commercial break.
When was the last time you saw your financial professional? Are you getting the most out of the strategy that was created for you? Although you've done a great job finding someone to help plan for your future, are you 100% sure that you were given the right strategy? We can help answer these questions and more with a complimentary second opinion evaluation. We will take a look at what you have in place and then help determine if you're well positioned to get the most out of your future retirement income. In the event that it is not, we can help by making suggestions and showing you how to get on the right path. You wouldn't get just one opinion when it comes to a major health decision, so why would you treat your most important financial decision with such disregard? Call today for your no-cost, no-obligation second opinion evaluation to see if you're getting the most out of your retirement income plan.
And welcome back to Retire Smart Maryland. My name is Cynthia Defazio, and I'm joined today by Prashant Sabapathi and Ozer Culhagil of Elite Income Advisors. Gentlemen, a great show we're having today, talking about those 5 very important risks that people need to be aware of when they're approaching retirement. Prashant, this next one, this is a big one, and we should talk a lot about this. Market risk. How does that impact retirees overall?
Something tells me we're not going to have enough time
I know.
just in the show to get through this. But it's a huge concern, right? It's a huge concern with everything that's happened in the world with the stock market and even the bond market, which we all kind of thought the bond market is supposed to be a lot less risky than the stock market. But we've seen this incredible kind of convergence of a negative stock market and a negative bond market at the same time. And so it's a huge point of concern. Ultimately, what we're looking at is the retirement savings that you have is designed to take care of you when you get to that phase of your lifetime. And every time that you go through and lose money in the market, you are taking away some of your nest egg's ability to generate an income for yourself for the future. And so we have to have this mindset shift, in my opinion, where we're shifting from the accumulation and the take a lot of risk growth phase of our lifetime into what we would call the distribution or income phase of our lifetime. And oftentimes that really comes with this idea of creating an entire plan to figure out how the money that you have at risk is going to factor into your income. And so you have to be very cognizant of what is a kind of perceived worst case scenario with your money. So if you're going through the last, 15 months or so thinking, I've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in the market, you have to ask yourself, how is that going to impact your ability to retire in the next year or two?
Sure.
If that was your plan. Or if your plan was 5 or 6 years, how are we going to do that, right? So part of the Retire Smart roadmap is a portfolio analysis. And that analysis is going to show you the types of investments that you have. And it's also going to show you a stress test, which is going to allow you to understand how your portfolio should perform in really good markets, if we ever see one again,
right,
or really bad markets like we're kind of going through right now. You have to have that information before you move forward with retiring, in my opinion.
Prashant, thank you so much. I agree. And Ozzy, this last one, number 5, let's talk about that. Inflation. How does that impact retirees overall? Obviously, I know that every time we walk into the stores, food prices going up, obviously gas, fuel, everything. Let's talk about how that impacts our retirees, though.
Back in the days, let's say like before the COVID, when everyone was doing their planning, they were not really thinking about the inflation because we didn't have so much of an inflation in the 2000s, so to speak. But since COVID, we are seeing some very high numbers on a lot of different things. Like they used to be able to fill your tank for like $40. Now it's $100, right? Like 2 times, 2.5 times. But how about your pensions? How about your social securities? Or how about the income you're taking out from your investments? Are you going to be able to raise the same multipliers that you're seeing on the gas? You're going to have to do the thinking and planning based on the inflation as of today. And we always say, make a little bit of a wiggle room So bring a little bit more money to the household. So if inflation is higher, you don't really have to worry about it that much.
Okay.
That's such a great point that you bring up. It's this idea of making sure that you always have more income than you need, right? Like while we're working, we're all kind of just balancing this money in, money out type of formula, right? It's just income coming in, expenses going out. When you retire, that doesn't really change. It's still very much so about income coming in and expenses going out. What changes is where's that income going to come from? If it's not coming from your paycheck, it's got to come from somewhere else, right? Pension, Social Security, retirement savings. But on the expense side of things, as that number keeps getting higher and higher and higher at a much quicker rate, just like Ozzy said, you got to have more income than you actually need coming in, because then when we go through those times where things get crazy with inflation, you have a cushion to fall back on. Okay, we don't want people living paycheck to paycheck in retirement, right? Just like you didn't want to do that while you were working, you don't want to do that when you're retired either, because that is going to pull something away from your quality of lifestyle.
Sure.
If you work 4 decades to retire, the last thing you want to do is say, I can't do this, I can't travel, I can't spend more time with my grandkids, I can't volunteer because inflation, right? You can get out ahead of that by repositioning your money in a way that gets you enough income to retire the way that you want to.
And to enjoy life and to thrive, because you're both so passionate about that. And Ozzy, when we first started the show, you were telling me that people actually a lot of times can retire sooner than what they planned. And once they come in and they speak with you and to Prashant, of course, and Nick, they realize that they can do that.
Yeah, most of the time the people don't really realize, like you say, that they can retire early because they are stuck in the numbers. Like they say, I have to have this much of money to be able to retire. But did you really do your planning and see how much income you can generate from your assets to be able to live on? Because if you have all the income you need coming in, like, I think it's the time.
Sure.
It's not about how much money you have. It's about how much income you can generate to live the way that you want to.
It's all about income.
It's all about income. That's what we always say. So this will be our last opportunity for today's show. All you have to do is pick up the phone and give us a call, 833-308-5200, to schedule that complimentary, no obligation consultation with our team at Elite Income Advisors, or you can scan the QR code and book an appointment that way.
To our viewers at home, thank you so much for watching. Be safe, be happy, be blessed. We'll see you back next week on Retire Smart Maryland.